60 to 90% of people have been able to reduce or even eliminate their symptoms of social anxiety using this technique, exposure therapy. Have you ever heard someone say, "Go face your fears"? Well, exposure therapy is a much better version of that. Instead of going headfirst into something that you know can cripple you with anxiety, which can not only be harmful to your anxiety but also your self-esteem, you can use exposure therapy to expose yourself to situations that give you a small amount of anxiety. I like to call these baby step uncomfortable challenges, and they can look like this.
Trying exposure therapy to cure my social anxiety. Today's challenge, compliment a stranger.
By doing this, you can train your brain in small steps to feel comfortable, confident, and safe during situations that would typically make you feel really anxious. Let me show you how this works. So anxiety's job, its purpose, is to keep you safe, to protect you. If you start feeling anxious, that's because your brain thinks you are in danger. You don't want to remove anxiety because there are times that you will need it. If you're asleep at your house and all of a sudden you get woken up in the middle of the night and you hear somebody like wrestling with the doorknob of your front door, so you go look out the window and you see it's somebody trying to break into your house. You want to feel anxious there because anxiety puts you in alert mode, so now you're on alert and you're gonna go call the police. But if you didn't feel anxious in that moment, you might just go back to sleep, wake up the next morning and realize you've been robbed. You want to feel anxious in these moments. It's the situations like raising your hand in class, talking with a stranger, going grocery shopping by yourself, or even something like asking somebody on a date. Those are the situations that we don't want to feel anxious about, nor do we need to, based on the purpose of anxiety. These are all situations in which you can train your brain to not be anxious during by practicing baby step uncomfortable challenges. Now, even though it's really long, I like to use the term baby step uncomfortable challenges over exposure therapy for one simple reason, because the biggest mistake people make with exposure therapy is that they take on a challenge that is way too big. You may be tempted to try and make that big leap, thinking that you can train your brain quicker. That's not how it works though. You have to start very small. I'll give you an example of what a baby step uncomfortable challenge can look like. When I was a freshman in college, I decided that I was going to raise my hand one time in every single class as my first ever baby step uncomfortable challenge. The first day of this challenge was admittedly very rough because I was fighting every internal thought and every reason of why I didn't and shouldn't raise my hand. I'll admit that I almost didn't do it, and I procrastinated until the very end of the class. And with 5 minutes before class let out, I raised my hand. I asked my question and the class was let out shortly after. I felt so proud of myself even though I was anxious during the whole process of this. There's some key things to follow when coming up with your first baby step uncomfortable challenge that you'll realize I also did in the story that I just shared. First and most importantly, your challenge should be based on your effort. So your challenge should be based on something that you have control over. I could control whether I raised my hand or not. That is all based on my effort. But if my challenge was based on, let's say, raising my hand and answering one question right every time, now that is something that I can't control. Second, you have to remember that this is not an overnight process. It takes many times of doing this to really train your brain. Just like you have to lift weights over time, right? Consistently over a longer period of time to start, building your muscle. This is the exact same thing. Think of it the exact same way. And I probably know what you're wondering. How long does it take? This depends really on the person and the challenge itself. I'll share with you the rest of the process through my first challenge and how long that ended up taking. I continued to do my baby step uncomfortable challenge, day after day, raising my hand every single day. I started to slowly notice that I was feeling more and more comfortable about the idea of raising my hand in class. After doing this practice consistently for about 6 weeks, I was at the point where I felt so confident in myself about raising my hand that I was doing this multiple times a class out of my own free will. What even further shocked me was that I actually enjoyed participating in class, and I was actually one of the most participative students in the entire class, and just about every class that I was in. And if you think about it, 6 weeks really isn't that long, especially when you factor in that I only did 3 classes a week in college. I'm not saying that you should set a goal for doing it for 6 weeks, because it could take longer, it may take shorter. The most important part is just to stay as consistent as possible. To make this process a little bit more fun,
treat yourself.
Treat yourself 2011.
This doesn't have to be a shopping spree at the mall or buying yourself a brand new TV. It just needs to be something just enough to congratulate your brain and yourself for putting in the effort to go outside your comfort zone. And even if the challenge doesn't go exactly how you thought it would or you wanted it to, you still reward yourself for the effort that you put in there. When I was a few weeks into my first ever uncomfortable challenge, starting to feel a little bit more and more confident, and I remember one day I raised my hand with the confidence in the world to answer this question. I knew the answer, and I got it wrong. I immediately felt ashamed that I got it wrong. But then I remembered, hey, my challenge was to raise my hand one time in every class, something I can control. It was not to answer one question right in every class, which is something I can't control. So even on that day, I rewarded myself by playing 1 hour of Xbox before starting on my homework. It cost me $0 and was still a great reward for me. Before you start your first or your next baby step uncomfortable challenge, start thinking about how you are going to reward your efforts. So what's a good first baby step uncomfortable challenge for you? It can be tricky, but here's a hint to help you with that process. Think of something that you would like to be able to do without that overwhelming amount of anxiety that you usually feel when you do that thing. Then work backwards from there. Let's say public speaking is something that you'd like to be able to do without the typical and normal overwhelming amount of anxiety that you feel during that. Think, what's a baby step you can take towards that? It could be practicing an upcoming presentation in front of a few close friends. It could be complimenting a stranger on the street. It could be waving at the person driving the car on the other side of the street from you.
Hey!
Whatever it is, it needs to be small enough so that you can handle it, but also enough to where you do feel a little bit of that anxiety. Now, let's say you complete the challenge and you're looking for your next challenge. Pick another baby step uncomfortable challenge that's just a little bit bigger than the last one that you took. You keep repeating this process until you feel that the anxiety has either greatly decreased or even maybe been eliminated from public speaking for you. After you complete your first challenge all the way through, you'll probably find yourself feeling hooked because of the results that you get from this. And you'll want to do another one. These challenges will start to compile together, and you'll notice that your confidence will increase, your self-esteem will increase, and that your general and social anxiety that you feel on a day-to-day basis will start to decrease. Over a longer period of time of doing these challenges over and over again, you'll start to be doing challenges that you never even thought was possible for yourself. Let me tell you how I use this process that I'm talking about to go from an extremely socially anxious public speaker to giving a speech on one of the biggest stages in the world, TEDx. I knew I wanted to get better at public speaking because, frankly, I sucked at it, and I knew I also wanted to give a TEDx, even though at that time it felt impossible. I started by speaking in front of a group of about 15 teens. Then I spoke at a hospital in front of about 30 nurses. Then I spoke at a middle school in front of 600 students. Then I spoke at TEDx Tullahoma, where my TEDx talk has now received over 20,000 views. Now, those weren't the only steps and uncomfortable challenges I took to get to TEDx. I also started a podcast. I started having conversations with people on that podcast to get myself more comfortable with doing that type of thing. I also started connecting with people on LinkedIn that I thought were interesting and saying, hey, you want to get on a video call and just talk mental health for 15 minutes? I started doing all these little things to get myself out there more, to get myself talking to more and more people, to really enhance not really only my public speaking, but just me feeling comfortable by sharing what I believe in. Reaching the goal of being able to give a TEDx talk, I'll be honest, took a good amount of time. It took me about 3 years to get that done. And that's because it was a really big goal to go for. But it doesn't have to be that enormous. Find what you want to work on and achieve, and then set out and start practicing those baby step uncomfortable challenges, and over time you will get to a place that you only dreamed of. Stay consistent and you can and will get there. And in the meantime, if you're finding yourself having a hard time getting this process going, or maybe you come across a roadblock or a situation that you're like, oh, I don't know what to do here, reach out to me, leave me a comment below on this video, and I'll reach out to you and we'll talk. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I love talking about baby step uncomfortable challenges, honestly, because they have completely changed my life in so many ways. I could tell you so many just wild stories and things that have happened to me based on doing uncomfortable challenges, and maybe I'll do that in a future video. But for now, I just want to thank you for watching, and also thank you for subscribing. I see your mouse going down to the button to click, so I appreciate that. Give a like on the video, and I'll see you all next week. Peace!